Oh, those kids ass.
Yeah.
You.
That's what it says to come to the planning. I was
I used to be Sharpie as a show guy, see.
classically now about accountability conversation.
Yeah, I've graduated. It's a bigger, better thing.
And hey, Monique. Hello, my students.
Open it.
My last class.
Spirit.
Right. And it was like, hey, let's see how it goes. And the first thing I asked is,
I know what you mean.
are you ready to get started? Okay, well, here's my favorite part. Oh. Gonna look at your notes from last time. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our February 1st meeting of the Athens-Clarke County Planning Commission. For those of you viewing the meeting remotely, you'll find a meeting agenda on the Planning Department website at acc.gov/planning. For those of you attending in person, on the table by the door, you'll find the sign-in sheet and copies of tonight's agenda. For each agenda item, we will begin with a report from ACC planning staff. This is followed by a presentation by the applicant not to exceed 10 minutes. I'll pause here and just say our first item of business is actually an appeals hearing from the hearings board. So we will have a different procedure that will involve the appellant speaking for 10 minutes and then the appellee speaking for 10 minutes. We will then hear from members of the public. 3 minutes are allowed for any member of the public who wishes to address the commission. When addressing the commission, please provide your name, address, and the nature of your interest in the project, and direct your comments to the planning commission and not to the applicants. The audience is asked to refrain from applauding or jeering the speakers. Exhibits may be displayed by the applicants or members of the public at the podium. Written correspondence received by noon yesterday has been forwarded to the commission and is part of the public record. Any additional written materials to be placed into the record must be read during public comment within the 3-minute time limit. For all speakers, please pay attention to the timing device near the podium. The device will display a yellow warning light when you have 30 seconds left and then a red light when your time is up. After the public comment period, the applicant or their representative may request a 2-minute response. After that, the applicant will take their seat in the audience. At this point, the public portion of the agenda item is closed and the Planning Commission will proceed to discuss the item. We will receive no additional public or applicant comments unless requested by a commissioner. Finally, please note that the microphones in this room are sensitive and that the meeting is being broadcast live. Please turn off or silence your cell phones. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. The first order of general business is introduction of staff reports and other documents submitted to the PC into the official record. So moved. Motion from second and second from Sarah B. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The next order of business is approval of the January 4th Planning Commission meeting minutes, which came along with your packet last week. Motion to approve. Motion from Sarah G, second from Kristen. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? And then the third item of general business is our May courts. That's our transportation planning review and public comment. Mark, do we have anything from planning staff on May courts?
We are getting into the heart of starting our Metropolitan Transportation Plan update. So you might hear a little bit more about that in the next months. There's going to be some public input opportunities for the May courts. This is the 2050 MTP that we're working on now. So keep your ears out for that, and we'll let you know certainly in February if we have some calendar dates for those, if you all want to come out and express your opinions about transportation in the region.
That's great. Yeah, May courts is the regional transportation group that includes Madison, Athens-Clarke, Coney, Oglethorpe.
There's this, yeah.
Yeah.
half of like
Jackson is kind of in it now, part of
a
Jackson.
tiny little spot in
It's a
Jackson.
it's a commuting circle.
Yes.
Yes, metropolitan statistical area. Is there anyone in the public who would like to comment on Bay Courts? All right, well, then we'll move on to old business, of which we have none. So everything tonight is new business. And we'll start with the first order of new business is an appeal of a ruling by the hearings board at 2041 West Broad Street and 105 Magnolia Street. And just so that the audience knows what we're doing, this is different from our usual business. We are reviewing the process by which an appeal was denied. And so we're kind of sitting here as quasi-judicial as opposed to the problem solvers you've all come to know and love as you've watched all the planning commission meetings. We will start with the appellant who has 10 minutes. If the appellant wants to reserve 3 of those 10 minutes for rebuttal after the appellee speaks, you may do that. So appellant and then appellee, and then if needed, a rebuttal from the appellant. And I'm sorry, I should have asked this question. Do we take public comment on this? No, no public comment on this particular item. So we'll go ahead and begin. So we first hear from the appellant in this case.
Good evening. My name is Stanton Porter. My address is 73 Church Street, Winder, Georgia. I've been in front of you a time or two before, but here on behalf of the property, represent the property owner and the potential developer of this property. It's relating to a variance that went before the hearings board where we're asking for a variance to reduce the required building size on a building proposed development at 2041 West Broad Street. As part of that variance process, there are 5 standards or questions that have to be answered or satisfied in order for that variance to be granted. We believe that at the last hearing that those requirements were met and the variance should have been granted. And so I'm going to quickly present. I know as part of the application, you should have the letter, the appeals letter that I filed to get here. Otherwise, I don't think I'd be here if you didn't have that. And so I've outlined those standards and why we believe the variance has been met in particular in those. And so I'm not just going to get up here and read that letter, but those are met. Quickly, not introducing anything new from last time, but quickly want to talk about the project itself because I think some context for that is important in considering whether those standards are met. This is probably, like I said, at 2041 West Broad Street. It's right next to the McAllister's, what was the Steak and Shake before. It's a dilapidated, partially demolished building right now. It's been vacant for a number of years. At one time before, it may have been a mattress store. For that, years before that, maybe some kind of service station. It's actually 2 lots. There's 2 pieces of property as a part of the development that's being proposed. I have the site plan that was submitted as part of the application itself. There's no new site plan. It's what was part of the original application. It's to put in what's called a 7 Brew Coffee. This is a quick service coffee shop. There's nothing exactly like it in Clarke County. The closest one is in Beaufort. It's a nationwide chain. It is in line with what's very common now, particularly post-COVID, which is drive-through. It's a double drive-through coffee shop. It does not serve anything else other than drinks. There's no bagels, food, anything like that. Average service time is less than 40 seconds per person. It's a 23-car double drive-through. And the building itself is 540 square feet. So just the model itself, and this isn't unique to this coffee shop in general. I think it's going to be a trend that you'll see for a number of service industries going forward, is that the large inside area just doesn't make sense with how things are going now. And the uniqueness of this lot, or 2 lots, I would say, it's got a huge right of way. So if you were to look at it itself, it looks like it actually has a large front parking area, but the right of way actually takes up a number of that area. The building itself that's there now doesn't have a large parking lot, if really one much at all. The second lot that would be necessary for parking, it's an alternative way would have been to apply for it as a standalone commercial parking lot, which was another zoning way. But to combine these lots together, it actually slopes down to a ravine area. This would be a parking area mostly for the staff. It'd be a set of stairs that goes up from that parking area. It's the acreage between those two lots that are combined that in this district, but basically drive-throughs are allowed in this district, so it's not a request. It was not a rezone request. The actual use itself is allowed by right. Essentially, it's in this transition zone from the downtown area to the more suburban outer skirts of the county that have in the sort of transition area that require have certain square footage minimums. Sort of funny that coming to ask for a building to be too small. I feel like in other places I've been, it'd be asking for a building that's bigger than maybe what's allowed. And so, like I said, the building size that's being requested is 504 square feet. It's a modular building so the pad would be, the building on it would be demolished. The grading would be done. It's actually a modular building that's dropped in. We believe that the intent of this requirement, why it's in the code, which is to promote walkability in the area, multi-uses for this property in the future, long-standing use as you know, as we all know, uses of buildings come and go. We believe that the way that this structure will be done meets that. It's one that there's a walk-up window. People in the area can walk up easily to it, promotes community within that area. That's starting pays $15 an hour. They're at the very top end of service industry, employ almost 40 people. It's open 17 or 18 hours a day. And it'd be a real sort of focal point for this community as people are transitioning from their house to the many work areas that are there. There's a bus stop right in front of it. So we think that it achieves the goal of walkability and community. It also, in terms of longer use on the property, if for some reason, although a 7 Brew has not closed, there's like 2,000, I think, in the US, there's not been a single one that has closed. If it were to close in essentially a weekend, there'd be no remnants left of this building except a concrete pad. I mean, it could be pulled off essentially, and you'd have a building ready pad, which you don't have right now, for any other future use. And so we think that it complies with, like I said, the intent of that, the reason behind the square footage minimum. And looking at the standards themselves, I want to sort of highlight, like I said, by my letter itself, I tried to be direct in meeting or explaining why we believe all 5 of those are met. And I do want to point out there's a Take 5 oil change that also that's essentially 2 lots over that also was less than what would have been the required square footage that you may have seen recently built there. And so I think that in the decision to allow that, in terms of consistency, the same reasoning would apply for this business here. It's a little bit bigger building, but certainly well below what would have been required under this code section. In terms of the first standard, real quickly, the topography and sort of shape of this lot is unique. It's got although the acreage when we add the 2 lots together is one that's going to require a much larger square footage. There's a lot of it that would require significant dirt moving, unachievable development to actually just use the whole 2 lots together to develop into a single building or a parking area on the bottom and to build up because of the steep drop off in the back to a ravine. So we do think that there's some unique characteristics to this lot itself. I do think that on the second standard that if you look at this property itself, it's been vacant. It looks, I mean, it's just honestly just an eyesore. It hasn't been used or developed in any way for a number of years. And so, you know, it's partially demolished. It has essentially the front lot itself has almost no parking on it. And so we don't believe that this is just purely a convenience that we're asking for, but that this otherwise this property does not have much other use. In terms of the third condition, I think that this one, you know, for some of I think on the hearings board, a lot of the members we're very supportive of the project itself, but it's just sort of looking at the conditions themselves. And then actually had, I honestly can say the third one, was one of the things that was brought up. I mean, in some sense, all needs for variances are a result of the applicant itself. I mean, it's when somebody tries to go and build something, and if it doesn't meet the code, they're going to need a variance. And if they don't build it, they don't need a variance. And so in some sense, it's because they're trying to develop this project. But, the reason I was trying to give some context on the project itself is that my client certainly is not the one behind sort of a trend in that people would like something that is not large in square footage itself, but could provide a very valuable service to this area. And so, it doesn't work to have, you saw the Steak and Shake, for example, that went out of business next door, that is a larger square footage, sat vacant for a while. Like, first of all, it went out of business, the Steak and Shake did, but then sat vacant for a long time. And that's not a result of my client. That's just a result of industry trends, particularly post-COVID, that a lot of people want to be able to grab something quickly. And the way to do that is to do a double drive-through. You don't order at a box. It's only people taking your order. And like I said, it's only coffee drinks. And so your time is very quick. It'd be a huge benefit to the area. I mentioned in my letter that the average sales is at 200,000 a month. And so it's a high volume. There's lots of people. Like I said, that's why they can employ a lot of people, pay well, because it's a very successful business model. And then finally, it's asking, is on the fourth and fifth, will it negatively impact the development of adjacent uses? Like I said, I mentioned the Take 5 would have had a similar reduction very closely. I think that this business would be a huge impact beneficially to the redevelopment of this area. It's sort of an area that needs that, and this could be a big start for that.
Mr. Porter, I'm sorry, your time is.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, thank you.
Now we'll hear from the appellee, who also has 10 minutes.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to take this opportunity to be.
Do you want to say your name?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry. I'm used to being in this room, I guess.
Yeah.
Bruce Lonnie, Assistant Planning Director for the Athens-Clarke County Planning Department. I supervise the work of the hearings board, and so I'm going to represent the record as it was created at the December hearing regarding this item. So in responding to the appellant's request for an appeal, I just want to be real clear about what they're asking to be considered. There were two variances that had multiple parts. The one variance that dealt with 105 Magnolia Street was not the subject of their appeal request. The subject of their appeal request is the one that deals with 2041 West Broad, which is the forward-facing property that has the existing structure on it that Mr. Porter was speaking of. So that was variance 2023-11-2142. Okay. Had three parts. And as part of the hearing, the two parts that dealt with sidewalk and with parking lot buffer, it was agreed upon by everyone during the deliberation that those as depicted on the site plan that he just showed, which is the same that was at the meeting, would meet code, or at least there's the potential for it to meet code, and a variance wasn't necessary. So those two items were denied by the hearings board, not because of a failure, but actually because of the success that can be achieved with the design that was presented. So the focus was on the floor area ratio issue, which Mr. Porter's has talked to specifically here tonight, and that's what his letter speaks to. So looking at that specifically, one of the challenges that the hearings board has to face is working with statements of fact and not conjecture, not what could be, but what is. And they have to apply those statements of fact against 5 criteria, and they have to find the positive on all 5. The request meets all 5, and then they can grant the variance. And they are rigorous standards by no one else's calculation. They are tough. So those 5 criteria were considered in the deliberation. In the packet that was sent out to you, you have the hard copy materials, but we also had the recording of the meeting that we shared with you. And in watching that, I think what you're going to find on the deliberation is it was standard 3 and standard 5 that the hearings board was wrestling with on whether or not this could be approved or not. So let me focus on those two standards. Standard 3, the special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. That's a tough one, and it's always a tough one. But let me explain why that standard exists and why it's worded the way it is. There are instances where a new owner, someone inherits a condition, a set of circumstances, and the current code is at odds with that set of circumstances. And that was at the heart of some of the deliberation that the hearings board was having. What they found was, similar to Mr. Porter's comments, is that it really is the nature of the ask of the development where it didn't meet that standard. With standard number 5, the variance, if granted, will represent the minimum variance that will afford relief from the identified hardship and will represent the least deviation possible from the zoning regulation and from the comprehensive plan. So there's a couple measuring sticks in there. It's the minimum variance to give relief to an identified hardship. So we have to identify a hardship, and then is it the smallest amount necessary to overcome it? And they couldn't find that what was proposed was meeting that standard. So the standard that is at play is a 0.15 floor area ratio. So 0.15 means the acreage of your lot, 15% of that square footage needs to be built into a structure of some kind. It could be 1 story, it could be 2 story, but floor area has to be represented in that structure that represents 15% of the square footage of your lot. Conversely, that means 85% of your lot can be used for other things if you did a 1-story building. The reason why that exists on level 2 corridors is, just to give a purpose statement for why the code exists, is to transition certain corridors to a more pedestrian-friendly environment and to create a more sustainable building pattern, albeit fairly modest. 15% is not overly aggressive, and we do have a more aggressive floor area ratio standard on level 1 corridors, but this is on a level 2. With that deliberation, the hearings board found that it didn't meet the 5 standards. It was a vote. There were 2 folks that opposed the denial, and they stated their reasons on the record. So you've had that. And moving forward, the notion of these standards, I'd be happy to explain if there are any questions. At the risk of introducing new material to the deliberation, I'll just stop my presentation at this point.
So it is now time to bring it behind for you. Who would like to begin the discussion or the questions?
The gentleman rebuttal.
I think he used up his 10 minutes.
Yeah, that was the whole 10 minutes. Okay, I thought we could. Okay.
I thought about that too, Alex, but thanks for.
Hi, Kristen. I'll just start it off. So it's interesting. I mean, I don't know how long I've been on this board. We've seen this a couple times, right? This kind of thing. And it's always interesting because it's difficult going into it, not wanting to like form an opinion, but you don't like, and I'm actually if I could say, one of the cool things about COVID is like now we have recordings of all of our meetings that we can go back and watch, which I found tremendously helpful. So, going back, watching the hearings board, looking at the materials that they looked at, looking at the process that they followed, knowing that the sidewalk variances are really not in play. We're simply talking about the floor area ratio question of the building. And I'll be honest, like I don't really know why I would have an issue with what they decided on. I mean, it seemed like they have their criteria, they follow the criteria, they made a decision. It's our code, that's what they decided. I don't really have a problem with it. But I'm happy to hear other opinions.
Any other thoughts?
I don't disagree at all with that. In fact, I agree. I think well, I see it as, right, it's a numbers issue. It's too small according to what is there for them to do. It's not up to us to like what they were building or anything. None of that is our consideration, if I understand correctly. It is, did the variance board go off track for this or not? Did they go outside the lane? And they're completely inside the lane of what they should have said. And that has nothing to do with my personal opinion or my opinion as a planning commissioner. It's, the numbers say it.
Any other thoughts?
Question, it's probably for staff. Just take 5 of PD.
I believe Take 5 was a PD, yes.
So just for clarification, the PD is a plan development, so that meant it did have to come through a process that's community driven, that they had to ask for special permissions. They didn't vote, all right.
I would love to double check the record, but I believe that's how it happened a few years.
I kind of remember. Yeah.
So that's how they're able to have that kind of smaller building.
Correct.
Any other comments or like to make a motion? We can go there. Yes, Sarah.
Yeah, my comment is, looking at the evidence on the record, asking the question, did the hearings board have any reasonable evidence to draw the conclusion that they did? And I mean, for me, even just looking at the staff review, like there's evidence, it's right there. And I would like to make a motion to deny the appeal. Second, uphold the hearings board decision.
So motion from Sarah to deny the appeal, uphold the hearings board, second from Kristen. Go ahead and do a roll call.
Goodwin,
Yes.
Beresford,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Roz,
Yes.
Pass, Sams,
Yes.
Sanders.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. So we will now move on to item number 2, which is a preliminary plan development. PD 2023-12-2459. And I do want to make it clear to those out there observing us tonight, this is for comments only, so we will not take any vote tonight. There will be no final action out of this body. This is an opportunity for the developers to come tell us more about what they want to do and also to hear from the public to guide the developers as they continue to work on this project. So start with the staff report. Have you speaking?
Yes.
Evening, everyone. My name is Stephen, Planner 3, Plan Department, presenting the staff report for 5100 Atlanta Highway and associated properties. The applicant is requesting to rezone the property from commercial general and RS8, which is single family residential 8, to commercial general and RS5 with a planned development. This also requires a corresponding change in the future land use map from employment center, general business, and traditional neighborhood to just general business and traditional neighborhood. It'll make a little bit more sense when you look at the map on the next slide. But the proposal is for 222 townhomes, 148 multifamily units, and about 10,000 square feet of commercial space. 4-story multifamily building at the front. Across from Dozer Drive out on Atlanta Highway. The commercial building would also be on the other corner of that intersection. the CG portion of the zone of the land would be at Atlanta Highway. And then the RS5 portion is for the townhomes. Townhomes include both alley loaded and front loaded, meaning that the garage is either accessed from an alley or it's accessed from the front. The applicant is also planning to participate in the inclusionary zoning program for the multifamily portion of the project. The applicant is requesting 7 waivers. Staff supports 4 of them, opposes 1 and needs more information to render an opinion on the other 2. You have those in your staff report. Our opinion on each one is laid out there in the staff report. This is an aerial of the site as it currently exists. You can see it's largely wooded here, and then it's basically an open field right here. This is Atlanta Highway coming through here. This is Caterpillar, and then this is this gets you out to 316 University Parkway. This is Cleveland Road coming through here, and then there's the CSX Railroad line going through here. So it's a fairly large piece of property. This is our future land use map. We have on the left is the existing, and you can see we have this employment center zone district right here, as well as the CG and the traditional or general business and traditional neighborhood. And on the right, you can see what they're proposing, which is basically just to remove the employment center and just do traditional neighborhood and general business, which we deem to be compatible with the map based on the surrounding future land uses. This is one of those unique parcels. We have them scattered around the county where we have a future land use that does not match with the underlying zoning. And so this is that is always grounds in the zoning case to consider potentially changing the future land use. The zoning map here on the left is RS8 on that residential portion and CG on the front. So RS8 is not allowed in employment center. That's why there's that mismatch. And on the right is what the zoning would look like if this request was granted. It would be RS5 PD on the back where the RS8 zone currently is, and then it would be CG on the front. And as you can see on the, there's a little trickle over here, a little corner. That is the Winslow Park PD that has not been built, but it is also zoned with RS5. So RS5 zoning is in the neighborhood, even if it's not next door to this particular parcel. And this is an overview of the site plan. We have the 4-story multifamily here in this U-shaped building along Atlanta Highway. We have the single story, about 10,000 square feet commercial space right here. So that frames the entrance. A new intersection is proposed right here, signals, traffic signals there at Dozier Drive and this new street. And then everything else is townhomes. You can see it also comes out on Cleveland Road, which allows for some circulation and multiple access points. There's also an access point here. There's a drive, a street through here that could potentially be extended to connect over to Aubrey Drive if this middle parcel right here were to ever be developed. This is a rendering of the architecture that has been proposed. PDs normally come with binding architecture, and the applicant did not submit plans that are of sufficient detail to be bound. So that should be something that they will be bringing back at the master review phase. So we don't really have a lot of comments for you on the architecture at this time, except to know that it'll be coming. So we have these would be the rear alley access townhomes with the garage in the back. These would be obviously the front loaded ones with the garage accessed from the street. As you can see in our report, we do deem the request to be compatible with our comprehensive plan for the most part. The inclusionary zoning, a bit of a mixed use node out there at the edge of the county. The interconnectivity, there's no cul-de-sacs here. There's multiple connection points to the existing street network. So we've got a chance to distribute our traffic over multiple travel options instead of funneling everybody down to one spot. We also have some accessible gathering spaces here, some places where people can mingle between the commercial and the green space area. The main issue from a comp plan standpoint is that it really lacks housing variety. We're only getting two types here. We're getting a four-story multifamily and we're getting townhomes, when we would really like to see basically anything and everything, including those, as well as the types of housing that are in the middle between those. So sometimes known as missing middle, the quadplexes, the multiplexes. So that this project doesn't have that, and we think that it would be advisable to include that. We do deem it to be compatible with our future land use map as well as our zoning map. The employment center, as was stated earlier, doesn't match the zoning, so there is justification to reconsider. General business and traditional neighborhood match, so there's not really an issue there. And again, as I stated earlier, there are 7 waivers requested. Staff is supporting 4 of them, opposing 1. The 1 is the block size. This project is asking we have a 3-acre block size maximum, which is intended to break up projects and create new streets and new access and promote walkability and being able to move around, create neighborhoods rather than just one type of large development. And this, some of these blocks are going to exceed 3 acres, and we just don't see a compelling reason why they can't do that. So, and then there's 2 in there that we just need more information on to be able to render an opinion. Again, that's laid out there. We'll note that the site plan needs a lot of revisions to be code compliant, not just with our zoning code, but also with the engineering and technical standards of our other departments. You can see those comments laid out in your staff report as well. You don't often get a project where everybody has something to say about it, but all of our reviewing departments have had something to say where it needs to be improved in some way or tweaked. So there's a lot of work to be done on it. It may end up looking very different at the master stage to get to code and technical compliance. And it's being received right now with comments only. It'll come back for a master stage. And this is why we do a 2-stage review on plan developments, because they do become binding and we need to make sure that they can be bound according to our code. And seeing it twice allows us to see it, provide feedback, and then let them come back. So that said, that concludes the staff report.
Stephen? Next, we'll hear from the applicant.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Bates with Smith Planning Group, and I'm joined with Matt Ryder, the developer. Thank you for your time and your input and feedback. Appreciate it. I believe we have a good project here. This is a nice plan, and I believe it's appropriate for this location in Athens. I share planning sentiment that diverse housing types would make this community more dynamic. However, there's always trade-offs with design. And so diversity, complexity, customization results and brings added cost. And kind of the goal of this project is workforce housing. This is attainable, this is affordable housing, and this isn't high-end for the select few. And that's some of the reason for that. There's just the reality of the economy of scale and the ability to build things more cost effectively if you do them repetitiously. Now, while this is a spec building, I believe there's a lot of elements about this design that make this for a long lasting and desirable community to live in. And I believe there are many benefits to Athens. One of them is that these are townhomes on fee simple lots, which is actually a housing type that is not very abundant in Athens. Most of the time, attached products are on multifamily zone parcels. And the reason that's why I'm here tonight, because of zoning and the different waivers we're asking for and the complexity it is to get townhomes on RS zoned land. So when we see attached products on, thank you for pulling that up. Yeah, it's all right. When we see multifamily, or when we see attached products are usually on multifamily zone parcels, it is cheaper to build, but then those are rentals forever. And so those are the trade-offs. And that's one of the housing types I think we are bringing that is diverse and unique here. Also, this has attainable and affordable housing, which we know we need throughout Athens and throughout America. The inclusionary zoning, we're pretty excited about. One being able to offer that, especially proximity to Dozier Drive. I think it's a great, place to start your career, have housing across the street, be able to walk to work, and kind of as you work your way up in your career to advance, where and progress where you live and look at different housing nearby. I think the neighborhood commercial node is a unique add here. Honestly, there was a restaurant across Cleveland Road that's been closed down for a while. There isn't a lot of commercial out here. But we think with bringing this housing that there would be the potential to get some real viable commercial here. Excited about, at least one restaurant, maybe two. I think a neighborhood market would be nice here. It's something that we're also pursuing. That's going to take time to be able to find the right tenants there. I'd love to look locally to get those tenants. And so that's just reality. We did provide a little bit of a plaza space out front. We think would be, an amenity to the community as well. There is also, like I said, proximity to Caterpillar, and believe that this is providing housing for some of their employees and maybe incentivizing more people to work there when they've got housing nearby and they can walk or bike to work, which, is a dream for everybody, right? I think proximity to Winslow Park is also intriguing about this project. We're looking at old plats, but it actually appears we have a shared pin corner. GIS sometimes, especially in these rural areas, can be wrong. And so we're looking at that. It might be a long shot, and then there's many phases of Winslow Park. It might be a long shot, but we would like to see if we could propose or work with those potential developers to provide some kind of pedestrian access to their development, which comes out. Phase 4 is the last phase that comes all the way out, kind of shared, or I believe is shared pin corner. And then proximity to the mall redevelopment. Currently the bus transit only comes out to the mall. It doesn't go any further west, but with the mall redevelopment and the proposal of the transit hub, that would allow buses also, anticipate buses would be able to service this project. We're proposing functional front porches. 75% of the towns are alley loaded. There are the front loaded that have, that we'll talk about in a minute. Community greens, we've tried to disperse community greens throughout, so everybody has proximity to those, as well as amenities. We have a single loaded road there that provides people with lots of views to the existing trees and the stream. Proposing nature trails through there so folks can, have multiple ways to get out and experience and walk about. Expanding Athens sewer further is another benefit. Further west, there's potential as we're expanding sewer. Currently, sewer is in the Winslow Park development, but we're working to get that expanded with some different options. We're in Public Utilities Department, but have that expanded would unlock Cleveland Road and Old Cleveland Road and some of the vacant parcels that are in this area. Even the parcels along Atlanta Highway that currently, I don't even know where they have a septic system, possibly like the place next door. Maybe they don't have restrooms. And then profitability for Athens. Currently, these 43 acres are valued around 23,000 an acre. That's just what it's valued at, tax assessed, which they're selling it for that. But at full build out, we estimate these 43 acres would be valued at 1.8 million per acre. The current annual tax income is now at 12,000 a year. At full build out, it would be $1 million a year for Athens-Clarke County. Density, density always brings traffic, but it is minimized here because of an existing traffic signal that's at Dozier Drive. And that always, whenever you've got a traffic symbol, that simplifies things. And I think that's a benefit. We've tried to connect where we can. There are streams that, provide difficulties. We are stubbing out to adjacent parcel. There's a 17-acre undeveloped parcel there that could provide more connectivity. So we're doing our best to mitigate traffic through that connectivity. And then we're proposing walkable corridors with street trees here. And so here's what we're not proposing. If you could, yes, switch to the next slide. This is a multifamily parcel that's doing attached product. And that's how they're able to get the driveways spaced like they are. And a lot of the variances or waivers that we're asking, they're getting around by this RM zoning. And so this is what we're not proposing. Next slide, please. These are alley loaded single-family houses here in Athens. They actually have street trees that meet code. They've got the sidewalks, but this is not what we're proposing here. Next slide. This is a neighborhood that's got front-loaded, front-loaded houses, actually really nice houses. You can't see them because of the street trees there. This was, built, I think 15, 20 years ago. But this is also what I'm proposing. I think this is a nice road, but I think there's a chance to even make a more inviting public realm. Next slide. Another alley loaded product here that I think, looking at the public realm, the streetscape, the right of way has a lot missing that we are not proposing. Go to the next slide. This is Athens' typical street section. And this is what often is proposed, which I think is one of the reasons why a lot of our corridors are not as nice as I would like. Just the reality, not everybody's able to afford to live in the best neighborhoods in Athens, but I think we should have equality in the corridors and in our public streets. And that's what we're trying to work towards here. Now, I've talked to a lot of different departments of why this is the proposed cross-section. I've never heard anybody say because aesthetically this is what Athens wants, or has even said this is because promotes pedestrians and cyclists and reduces the speed of vehicles. I've never heard that. But I have heard from every department, this is the easiest to maintain. So what I am proposing, next slide if possible, is what we are proposing is street trees on a verge. We're proposing to have more walkable, inviting corridors, corridors that we're proud of. And I think this is essential for our working class citizens and our working class developments that we provide these kind of corridors. This is Lakewood on the east side. This was planted 15 years ago. And just so you can see the difference, some of those other projects are 15 years ago, the amount of shade you've got. What I also like about, having young kids, there's a sense of safety when that sidewalk is pulled off the back of curb and you've got trees and planted in between. Plus, I think it makes what I call semi-public realm much more engaging. You've got the tree, you've got the house, you've got your front porch, and it begins to create this enclosure that feels really good for the pedestrian. And so this is what we're proposing. We're proposing to, encourage people to get out and walk about. We're proposing what we believe is corridors that are inviting and corridors that everyone in Athens should be able to call their street and their home.
Thank you, Mr. Bates. Okay, next we'll take public comment. First, is there anyone here to speak in favor of this project? No? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Please come forward to the podium and just state your name, your affiliation with the project, your address.
I'm Dale Mills. I live on Cleveland Road, 2374 Cleveland Road. I'll just start mine off by not in my backyard. I'm just down the street. There's visual there. We moved out there 37 years ago because of the space, wildlife, habitat, natural environment. If you go around Cleveland Road, most of the tracks there are large. People have enjoyed having space with fencing and whatever. This is this to me is an inner city type of development, 4 stories, sitting on the side of a 2-lane road. You're not thinking about roads. You're not thinking about anything in the reality world. Road size is a problem on both sides. You need to have a 4-lane road, 11 highway all the way to Winder if you're going to do anything like this, because that's going to start something else. You don't get the road wide enough. Why do it backwards? Build the road, then allow people to develop if you're going to do this in a development manner. Where's you going to shop? You're going to go down the street to the dollar store. You got to walk to the mall to get transportation. You don't get run over. When you drive out there at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, there's a lot of traffic on 4 and 5 lanes between the mall. What's going to happen when the 550 or more children are there? with 1.5 children per household, you're gonna plan on building another school? I mean, is that another grammar school? What are we looking at here? I don't quite understand how somebody would want to plan something so large in an environment that doesn't have a sewer line hardly. Maybe it's a piece of a sewer line there. You got water that won't run off the hill where Fresh Air Barbecue was. The water won't even run off. It ran out in the driveway the whole time. It won't drain away. For some reason, that hilltop doesn't even let the water go away. Anyway, it would be destroying open space and wildlife habitats that a lot of us try to enjoy. We've got other people land down the road from there that we keep natural. And we just, I understand building and development. I'm a realtor. I don't understand bad planning or backwards planning or doing it in a way that might cause more resistance. Thank you.
Anyone else who would like to speak in opposition?
Good evening. First of all, thank you. My name is Jamie Thomas. I live at 2539 Cleveland Road. My property will directly abut this proposed development on the west. I'm certainly all for progress, and I've lived in downtown Athens in rentals, for a majority of my stay in Athens. I understand that there's a need for affordable housing. My main concern is specifically in District 6, we don't have a municipal infrastructure. I feel like personally that would be required to sustain not only the level of development that's being proposed for this project, but additionally, the Georgia Square Mall project is right on the other side of Cleveland Road. And as an addition, I also work on Cleveland Road. So I work at 325 Cleveland Road and I live at 2539. So I stay in the Cleveland Road area. That's my life. Now, my concern is with something of this scale with that level of population density, I really don't see, once again, the schools is a whole other thing. I don't have children. But I just don't see that we have sufficient facilities for proper EMS response for that many individuals. We don't have proper police response, and sort of a loose example. I know that they're covering, the proposed development is covering certain things like sewer and water in their proposal, and that's great. But look at the recycling dumpsters that were at the former movie theater site. Those were shut down due to lack of ability to staff and illegal dumping. So you have two issues. You have criminality and inability to efficiently manage the space. And by the way, there's a police station, substation, like within view of that. I mean, I don't see anything that illustrates a lack of necessary infrastructure. And we're looking to scale this up to the point where we have such a high population density. I mean, everything's going to scale up. And not that this is bad, but criminality is going to scale up. Emergencies are going to scale up. We need to be able to scale up our infrastructure to meet these needs. Like I'm not 100% against development, but I don't think that we should rezone this until there's some type of, pardon me, I'm done. But, oh, no, it was yellow. I just want to say some type of feasibility study that's done to know that our community infrastructure is in a point where it can respond appropriately to this level of density. Thank you.
Very much. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak to this?
My name's Ashley Butler. I live on Darlington Station. This will back right up to the railroad tracks where we live. My main concern would be the traffic. We have to wait a long time to get out onto Atlanta Highway from Cleveland Road every single morning. To take a left-hand turn is almost impossible. Most of us cut through Dozer Road to get to 78. I'm not sure why we do not have a turning lane onto 78 that will make it more efficient. So we're going to bring possibly close to 1,500 more people in that, on 40 acres, I believe. It just doesn't make sense. And I see that they have two entrances going out, proposed two entrances to go onto Cleveland Road. That's only going to make it worse. I mean, our school buses have trouble getting out onto Atlanta Highway. I just don't think it's the place for it. Just don't think it's going to work. And the walkability, there is nowhere to walk to from that area. There, we need to focus more on what left Atlanta Highway and try to build that back up instead of adding more people to it. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else who'd like to speak to this issue? Okay, great. Thank you for your comments. We'll bring it behind the rail. Who'd like to kick us off? I'll jump in. This is kind of a technical question that either the applicant or maybe staff can answer. I'm just looking at the public utilities comments, and one of them is PUD refers gravity sewer to pump station options, and then if pump station is pursued. So I guess my question is, do we see the possibility of gravity here?
Yeah, so the applicant wants to, yeah, he probably addressed that better.
About to get up to it.
Yes, so there's several paths for gravity. We've pursued the least invasive, or the cheapest one, the safest one. That one, the property owners is not willing to negotiate, so we're looking at some other opportunities. But there is a very real chance that we might need a lift station here.
Okay, thank you. What do y'all got? Kristen?
Yeah, so I guess in the interest of, we're just offering comments, right? Yeah, sewer, like as soon as I saw that like sewer didn't go out here, and on top of that, you have the mall project and I remember we saw something a while back on the other side of Atlanta Highway, and there was an issue with sewer there too. So I'm a little concerned about sewer on that extreme west side of Athens. And since we still haven't gotten the review about that yet, so I guess that's to be determined, TBD. So that's kind of my one concern. I mean, I really do appreciate the comments from the public about city services. I mean, what's come up before about the cost of residential versus the benefits of tax income, I guess. I know Sarah can speak to this better than I can, but yeah, I mean, it's legit, like it is, and I'm also not one to like really hang off of traffic, but I have been out there and like, yeah, you get past the entrance of 78 and it's like, it's almost like you're crossing a border into a different. So I would be curious if there's plans for TPW to like look at that corridor, at that, like, you know, if there's some ways to offer some relief, because I feel like that area has been kind of ignored for a while. And I'm always amazed at how crazy traffic is on that side of Atlanta Highway. So, so yeah, and then, you know, I would just encourage the applicant. I mean, I know you've asked about like drawings, you know, I just have a thing where I get the affordability. I hate that quality might get compromised in the effort to make something affordable. I don't know why nice things can't also be, we can have like, things can be inexpensive and well designed. I don't know. That's just my opinion. So that would be my guidance.
So more housing types.
More, or just, I mean, maybe you can use the same materials and just like change up some designs throughout it. Maybe, you know, maybe there's just different ways to design the exterior. Maybe the floor plans are the same and just the exterior finishes are changed up. I mean, that's, you know, that would be kind of my guidance.
So do we have a concern about sewer extension? We do have sewer
very close.
Well,
Right.
To Kristen's point, this sewer goes to a different basin than on the other side of the one you heard. So this goes to the middle of Oconee, whereas the one you heard on Classic Road went to McNutt's.
Interesting.
That is and as well as the mall goes to the middle of Oconee.
So this would be the same basin as the mall,
Correct.
but not what we were hearing before where there was a legit question about the capacity.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
But that might have been slightly different because you were asking about pump station versus gravity.
Well, I guess what I might not have a very good sense of the topography right there. So the immediate west is 8-inch sewer. And it stops with that subdivision that's kind of to the immediate west of this property,
You
right?
mean immediate east?
East.
I'm sorry.
Closer to
Didn't-
Kingston.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then it goes into one more independent property.
yeah.
That's at the back of that subdivision. That's where I believe the applicant has stated that the stalling out of a negotiation with that property owner is occurring in order to get gravity-based service.
So but that is county sewer.
Yeah.
So property owner, are you saying that the sort of property that would connect that, the furthest extent of that sewer and this property in question, there's no easement or anything allowed for there? I just
They would need to negotiate that. There's none present, I guess is the way I would say it.
I just don't really understand, I guess, how a private property owner who has public sewer could stop that sewer being extended to another private property owner. That doesn't make sense to me. If it's county, if they built their own sewer or some magic thing, I guess that'd be one thing, but it's ours, right? The taxpayer sewer.
Yeah. I don't have a good answer for you as to how we require a property owner to allow that extension further through their property. That's
Yeah,
a policy from our Public Utilities Department.
yeah. Hopefully by the time we see this again, we'll have some clarity on that, just because that's a pretty big deal. I don't want to build another lift station. I mean, I think we want to do that as little as possible. So the ideal would be extend what we already have, unless there's topography there that I don't understand.
I don't think topography is the issue there.
Okay.
Other comments? Feedback?
I have noticed how incredibly rare fee simple townhomes are in this town. And I do appreciate that kind of diversity in the housing stock. Hearing comments about design, mixing up the design does make me think about photos that have been going around the internet recently of Petworth neighborhood in Washington, DC. When it was first built, and it looks like someone just turned on the townhouse printer and let it go for acres and acres and acres. That's a very beloved neighborhood in DC now. That was, decades ago that happened. And things looking, cookie cutter neighborhoods or repeating the same pattern over and over in terms of the architecture. It can look good. It's the changing up the facades of the houses. I don't think is necessary everywhere to have a good feeling neighborhood. I want to point out, as I usually do with things like this, for people who don't have the staff report right in front of them, that if questions of, do we have the infrastructure? Do we have the transportation infrastructure? Do we have the water and sewer or the stormwater infrastructure? These are all addressed. Not very fully in this instance, because it's the first time we're receiving this for comments. Folks in the audience might have heard in the presentation, every department, transportation, water, sewer, grading, drainage, a lot of questions yet to be answered before this could get pushed onto a binding site plan. But these things are thought about, and that's just like a point that I like to make up whenever we hear those questions of who's thinking about this? In a lot of cases, people in the government are thinking about it, and they helpfully pass their opinions on to us and then to the Mayor and Commission. I'm generally assuming that these comments are resolved. I'm generally in support of this project, and I hope we get to see it back again.
What else? Katie.
Yeah, first I want to say it's great to hear that intention to make a really quality public realm. I don't think we talk about that enough, and especially the role of narrower streets and trees that are planted between the pavement and the sidewalk. We need a lot more of that in Athens, in my opinion. There's kind of a conflict I see with the front-loaded townhomes. I think that's something that strongly undermines the public realm, so I would not support those. Else? I had a few questions. I think as happens a lot, we're faced with the lack of planning ahead in terms of, are we following best practice of clustering jobs, housing, civic services like fire and schools and sewer, of course. And of course, the growth concept map and future land use map is dealing with that now. But as we've been saying the past few years, it would be great to know in advance, to have a plan in advance. Personally, I was dismayed by Caterpillar, all those jobs going in such a rural area that wasn't on the bus line, wasn't near housing. But given that it's there now, I appreciate the intention to put attainable housing in that neighborhood, especially the use of the inclusionary zoning ordinance. And I'm fine with the housing types and the commercial on the road. Yeah, as always, though, I would love for us to have some real intentionality when we designate undeveloped area to become a new node. I hate to see a forest, urbanized without a really strong intention and reason to. Another plus, I really appreciate the applicant looking at the tax implications of this use to the county and doing that calculation for us. And then I think I had a few questions. Let me see. Oh, yeah, and again, I think a lift station would not be a good option for the county to support. Let's see. I want to know if the multi-use sidewalk extension was in this project, or if that would be an issue. I think that's a question for the applicant.
Yeah, so we are proposing a multi-use trail along our frontage, Atlanta Highway. That'll be a 10-foot wide path. There's a plan for a greenway trail to come down Cleveland Road and then also extend along Atlanta Highway. So we're just kind of building in what is planned for the future, and hopefully that gets built relatively. We're also proposing a multi-use trail that runs on our proposed main spine road that goes all the way back to that northeast corner. Just to be able to collect, folks on their bikes and pedestrians to be able to walk to the commercial node without having to conflict traffic with vehicles.
Great, okay, and while you're here, I noticed that staff recommended some, I think, bump outs on the on-street parking. Is that?
Yeah, so Athens zoning does require a lot of on-street parking spaces. It's actually one space for every 2 units. And so when you do townhomes, it's really hard to actually get those on-street parking spaces. And so, what we originally proposed was a wider street where you could basically on-street park throughout. This was, initial submittal. Then we've talked with We've talked to the Public Works Department, we've talked to the Planning Department. We're trying to find ways certainly to narrow that road. We don't want to impose any asphalt. We don't have to. We may come back and ask for a waiver for the amount of on-street parking that we're going to provide. After talking with Public Works, they're going to allow some flexibility on where we propose that on-street parking currently. They don't allow on-street parking with, I think it's within 50, 60 feet of an intersection, which makes sense on a lot of roads, but in local roads like this, we need to be able to get more on-street parking, especially with our block minimums. You can only get like basically two on-street parking spaces, on some of those narrow blocks. So, yes, we're working on that and plan to come back with another cross section that does kind of a road diet or bump outs, separates that on-street parking.
Okay, great. And so while you're here, I'm just curious on your take of the driveway separation requirement and how design addresses that.
Yeah, and so it's really challenging, on sites like this and with density to get with grading and to have the topography where it's efficient to have alley loaded. And so on the edges, we're anticipating that the grade was going to fall off a bit and that those would either need a wall behind them or they would be basement lots. And so getting an alley back there was just challenging and cost prohibitive. Now we I've talked with Transportation Public Works. They want to send us to the hearings board instead, even though they could, and we know we're not going to win at hearings board. We heard that earlier, right? So I think we're going to look at either going to fully alley loaded townhomes, or we may pursue, and we're weighing the option of going with single family detached, where the grade doesn't seem to make sense to put alleys, and that those driveways would be spaced far enough to meet code.
That would mean fewer units.
It would potentially mean fewer units.
Thanks.
Comments? Alex?
Kind of a question for staff at the moment. So the apartments up front on Atlanta Highway, they're in the current zone that they could be built anyway, or not. They're not.
With ground floor commercial.
Right.
So that's one of the waivers.
Okay, right. But without the waivers, they can still go in and build apartments.
Only
With the ground, yeah, with that. Yes. Correct. Okay. And then do we know why it's at RS8 now?
I don't know how long
This is
that,
an RS5. I'm trying to get to the bottom of that to begin with. You probably don't know, but
yeah, I don't know.
We already need Lucy Rowland to read.
and the reason where I'm coming from is one of the comments we've been hearing is all the cars and all of this. And, but even, it's a fair amount more that they can build because of the 5 versus the 8, but it's still a lot of 42 acres that they can build as is. So I don't think the owners of that property can be asked to just live with the property the way it is. I think it has a right, as owners do, to sell their property or develop the property. So eventually something's coming there, and it can go in as the RS8 number, which still adds up to well over 100 units. And I'm looking at the bigger picture versus the sidewalks and all of these things. To me, that's going to be part of what we're dealing with. Is there's going to be a number of cars headed in that direction anyway, because somebody's going to develop something there. So I just wanted to clear up why maybe it's an 8 versus a 5, and if that had anything to do with where this property has come from versus where it needs to go by these developers. So that's all I'll really get into. Thanks.
I'll just add a couple more comments, mostly kind of backing up what I've already heard you all say. I like Alex was also interested in the fact that this is already zoned RS8. I was kind of trying to picture what RS8 would look like. It's obviously it's also a smaller lot zone, right? What's the square footage?
8,000.
8,000, yeah. That's the 8, thank you. Should have known that by now, right? So this is pure speculation, but I guess if I were a developer, I'd be, and I were just trying to do something about right, it'd probably be a bunch of small detached dwellings on 8,000 square foot lots. And as Alex said, you can still put a lot of those in there. I want to echo something that Kristen said. I would ideally like to see a little more variety in housing types, whether it's like the attached facades look different. I'm actually less concerned about that than the possibility of having, maybe a house scale fourplex or something, just something to create a more mixed feel to the community that would, invite people in different stages of life, different income levels, et cetera. I also share probably everybody on this planning board's aversion to the front-loaded garages in front. Just you look at that picture and all you see is, oh, that's all about the cars, and that's a taste-making thing. But I really liked the alley-loaded ones. They look good. I would be really happy to live in one of those or have a stretch of those in my neighborhood. I think that what Katie was saying is a problem that we actually want some of these kinds of commercial and more dense residential nodes around our town. But so far, there's nothing on the map that says the intersection of Cleveland Road and Atlanta Highway should be one of those. We do have the zoning, and the developer is, the front part of the property isn't going to change. The back part of the property is going to get a little more dense, but it's going to maintain its residential character. But this is just a comment. I do hope that, moving forward, we can be, especially since we're moving into this process that planning staff is so ably taking us through, that we really do think about that. The whole community. It's so easy to be between wherever you live and wherever your child's school is, and kind of forget about all the rest of the city. So I am very sympathetic to the concerns of the neighbors in terms of there being literally nothing there in terms of human habitation to lots of people there and families and everything. We all agree whether we want it in our backyard or not, and I understand that philosophy as well. We all agree we need more housing types and we need more variety. We certainly can't all live in, 3-2 detached single family houses in, Normal Town or Five Points or whatever. And this is, in terms of employment opportunities with Caterpillar right there, this is very well located for that. So it may organically make a lot of sense here, but I do think we have to be really aware as we move forward on these kinds of things. And this, this is a comment to the applicant as well, that residents are able to feel like they are part of the process. You're playing catch up here because we don't have it written on a plan somewhere. But I hope we can get to that point where people who live on Cleveland Road or, that adjacent area just on the other side of the railroad, wherever it is, that those people understand that the future plan for this area is to create, a pocket of density with commercial amenities as well. Having said all that, I too generally support the idea of this project. We do need, obviously, there hasn't been a traffic analysis done yet, and that's going to be crucial because that's going to have probably the biggest effect on the neighborhood. So there are a lot of things that we haven't seen yet that we need to see, but I hope that when this comes back to us, that we'll be able to see those things resolved. I'm sorry, one other thing, and then I'll stop talking. The one variance that staff doesn't like is the big blocks. And I keep looking at this plan, and I guess I'm looking forward to seeing something more binding, because I can imagine the way that you are imagining the streetscape with the trees and then the sidewalk and then the buildings, that a long block under those conditions wouldn't be so bad. If I'm just walking through Canyon City, then yeah, and I'm looking at, parking garages or something, but I could imagine that could work, especially with the alleyways, even though our code doesn't specifically allow for that, but I'll be interested in seeing how that works out. Stop talking now.
I guess one more thought, actually. We've been talking a lot about the townhome development, but we don't have anything in the packet that talks about the front. I'm assuming that the smaller one is purely commercial and the bigger one is an apartment building, correct? That's how that was.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm assuming when we see this again, there would be renderings of the apartment building too, because we don't. Right?
Correct.
And there's no commercial on the first floor of that apartment building.
That's correct. That's one of the waivers there is.
So the only commercial is that smaller building. I know it's not super small, but like,
Yes.
that's okay. Yeah, that was my only thought as Alice was talking to, I was thinking about like, is like we saw this other development where they built an apartment building in the front and then immediately sold that off and like sort of peeled off away from the rest of the neighborhood, so to speak. So I don't know. I was just thinking about the dynamics of that. And I guess in involving the inclusionary housing ordinance, is that where that would apply? Because those would be rentals? Is that how that would work?
I guess I don't totally understand the question. The inclusionary housing is for the apartment.
Would
The
be for
U-shaped
that,
building, yes.
that apartment building in the front. Yeah, so that's.
We don't have an ordinance yet that for single family fee simple.
Right, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, so that was where that would be, so the affordable aspect of it is simply in the front part of the development.
That's everything I'm getting out of the applicant.
All right, just want to clarify that. Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, well, that's our comments and we'll look forward to seeing you back when you come back. So we'll move on to the next order of business, which is a special use request on Prince Avenue. This is special use 2023-122444. And we're looking at special use to allow a residential single family and a commercial office built. Start with the staff reports.
All right, our new IT specialist is getting us there.
Other duties is assigned by management.
I am on the struggle bus.
All
I
right.
had to do this in class and I'm always like, what are you looking at me? Can't do this. So true.
Okay, our last case this evening is at 585 Prince Avenue. This is SUP 2023-12-2444. Can you click on just anywhere on the screen? Thanks. There we go. All right, so we've got a special use request in the commercial office zone for a single family dwelling. They are looking to utilize an existing historic dwelling, most recently used as an office space. Recently, this body heard about this property in 2023 when the Clarke County School District was getting rid of some of their properties. This property and the one to the rear of it along Hill Street were sold off and partitioned off. And this one was given a CO designation while the one on Hill Street was given an RM designation. Those were to match with the existing ones that are adjacent to them. So they are currently looking to turn this back into a single family residence. There is rear parking behind this house. They also have a parking agreement with the school district for a few spaces in their parking lots. Has a shared driveway entrance off of Prince Avenue with the adjacent property to the east. As I said, this is formerly part of Piedmont College and the Clarke County School District and the rezone from G to CO. And I think that last spot on there was that they're not intending to change anything on the exterior aspects of this structure. So you can see the property here along Prince Street. You can see the large Clarke County School District building there to the west of it. And then as you go into town, that triangle there between Hill and Prince is where the historic firehouse and historic Athens is located. Across the street, we have the church property and then a few of the other properties along Prince Avenue there. Guessing that's the president's house across the street there, UGA. So here we have the current future land use. There's no expected change to this. So Main Street business, future land use. Here we have the current zoning of CO. You see some hatching there for our historic district. This property is not in the historic district. And then you see on the right-hand side, the proposal to maintain the CO, but to apply a special use permit to the property. Here is a shot of the house. You can see the kind of historical nature, and we've seen a lot of these houses turned into offices over the years along Prince Avenue. So it's kind of wonderful to see part of this process go a little bit full circle, coming back to the potential for using this again as a historic residence. This is a special use, so it sits on top of the zoning. The CO zoning would still underlay this property. And if the owner or any future owner chose, they would have that opportunity to use some of those uses. That would all need to come back for review and meet all the standards of our office and our peer departments throughout Athens-Clarke County. So quick site plan of the two properties. The one we're talking about is actually the property on the left-hand side here. So you see Prince Avenue running through the middle. This site plan shows the one to the rear because this came off the Clarke County School District property together. You see a little bit of parking in the rear there. You can see the shared drive. There's actually additionally some access from the Hill Street property. It's a little bit unique, and I would defer to some lawyers as to exactly how much access they have through there. Since the sell-off, there has been a fence installed back there, so that's kind of limiting a bit of the property. And then you can see the shared use driveway kind of coming in that goes as well to the structure upwards on this, which is to the east, which is also used in a residential capacity. So the comprehensive plan asks that we support housing rehabilitation and initiatives along with other programs for housing. Also talks quite thoroughly about locating people near their daily needs, services, and amenities along some of the corridors. A lot of what you all have heard from us in the growth concept and future land use map efforts. So Prince Avenue is one of our most enhanced corridors in terms of transportation options, as well as proximity to downtown for jobs and other jobs throughout that area of town, amenities, restaurants, small shops, things of that nature that someone might be able to use on a daily commute. This is compatible with our future land use map, our zoning map, and with the zoning ordinance. The special use permit allows for the future uses as mentioned under CO, given that an applicant came back and met all of our standards. And this meets the test in the standards in the special use procedures. Staff is recommending approval of this project, and that concludes the staff's report.
Thank you, Mark. Next, we'll hear from the applicant.
Hello, my name is Ruth Darden. My husband is David Darden. He's a teacher at Cedar Shoals High School. And we moved from Marietta, Georgia to Athens, and we love older historic homes. And when we knew about this property probably 3 years ago, and we kind of fell in love with it. We did fall in love with it because we like history. And so we put the offer in, and then eventually we were able to purchase it. So we would like to make it a home, because that's what it is. It's a home from way back, probably around the turn of the century. And in the deeds, it talks even about the neighbor, the brick home that we share that gravel driveway. A doctor built that and got permission from this home to share that driveway. We also share the driveway behind the home. The board put a fence totally across, but we'll ask the neighbor if we just have a gate for when it's really busy to access Hill Street. But we're not going to destroy this home in the inside. It's going to remain exactly as is. In fact, they boarded up windows. The windows of the sunroom have been boarded up. We want to take that down, the vinyl down on that, and restore the home back the way it should be. Even a door was boarded up and sealed over with that vinyl. But anyways, that's our plan. We just want to make it our home. Thank you.
Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this request? Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this request? Okay, we'll bring it behind the rail. Somebody kick us off. Sarah?
I guess one thing, would you entertain a motion at this point?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to move to approve.
Second.
Great. And then I have.
Sarah?
Yep, and I guess we can discuss. I do have a question, just sort of as an opportunity to learn something here. If a special use is granted, is what you all are saying is that they need to get special approval to revert to the underlying original use? Or I'm just kind of curious about that, like.
Like if they wanted to suddenly open a law office?
Yeah. I mean, that wouldn't be a problem for me. I'm just kind of curious administratively, like, do they have to come back for that?
Revert to the original
Yeah.
use or to use it as, because I think the original use, if we're going way back in history, is a house. Do you mean that, or do
I
you mean?
mean
to
that
to-
underlying zoning, the CO zoning.
Okay, yeah, so the underlying zoning stays, to put a commercial use in there that's allowed in the CO zone. Potentially based on what they need to do in there would come back. That's a new use, so that would come back through our process. That would be reviewed by our department, building inspections, fire marshal, all the other departments that review building reviews. If that all worked fine, then that would be able to administratively get.
It wouldn't have to come through this.
That's correct. Yeah, to do, well, I shouldn't say that. It's not that anything wouldn't have to.
Right.
Anything that's permitted in the CO zone would not have to come
Okay.
back to this. is
Just
the way I would say.
curious, it's neither of those was the right answer. I just wanted to.
Any other comments? I will just say that I have loved this house for many, many years. I live in Normaltown and go by it all the time. And I'm excited to see it coming back to life in whatever way, but especially one that restores its former glory. So I don't get a vote on this because I'm the chair, but I just, if I weren't chairing this meeting, I would be voting yes. I don't think we need a roll call. We've got a motion to approve, a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, well, that takes care of that. Thank you. So our last other business section of the meeting includes the Planning Commission Chair's report. He's not here, so, and the Vice Chair has no report. Planning Director's report, do we have anything?
Only thing,
On?
yeah, only thing coming up is the second vote, or second hearing for a potential vote on the short-term rental ordinance that you all heard in December. So that'll be next Tuesday with the Mayor and Commission.
Okay. They haven't sent it back to us yet.
Nope.
I'm curious if there are any edits since we voted on it.
Yes.
Nothing that I can really recall. Austin, have you seen anything? I haven't seen anything in there.
Yeah, they actually don't have the option to make any changes. It's either approve or deny.
I gave someone some wrong information.
It's a little bit different.
Yeah, I thought they could do whatever they want, just like they do.
Under text amendments, it's just approve or deny, but it just is the key. If they want to make a change, it doesn't have to have the 12-month waiting period. They can just come right back to it.
You'd have to come back to the planning commission, to start the process over.
So even the conditions that we added would have to be.
I mean, like the mayor and commission can't add any other conditions
Okay.
when they vote next week.
Or can they remove the ones we added?
Right, it's either approve or deny.
All these years in public service and I didn't, I was on the mayor commission. I didn't realize.
You didn't know they couldn't meddle in that?
Yeah, I just vote yes or no, it's a binary choice.
I think the only other thing I would say is that future land use map efforts have been going strong with an outside party we're trying to get to do a digital input component to that process. We're hoping that's mid-February, late-ish February. So you may be hearing from us by email to come out and be a part of that before your March meeting, or we'll probably have a lot of news right at the March meeting for our public input sessions that will be in the spring for future land use map.
So would there be a work session with us on that, or would we just be encouraged to come to the public
I
presentation?
think we will get back to a work session a few months after that, but yeah, not prior to that. And this one will be will be a smaller in number of public meetings if we can get you all out to them. There will not be as many opportunities, but hopefully they're a little bit more targeted, and hopefully the online tool that we're trying to put in place will be cover any gaps or allow people who aren't able to make it out to those meetings. And then I believe the other idea is to have some drop-in time here at the planning department as well for folks to come visit and check out some of those efforts.
So that was be building off of what the input that you got in the fall? then?
Correct.
How, like evolving maps that were then
Yep.
coming from that public.
We got essentially the thumbs up was what I saw from mayor and commission. So yeah, to continue to proceed and start getting dialed in a little bit on the parcel by parcel analysis. That will be the future land use map. That's obviously where they have to make a few harder decisions. So might get a little stickier at this go around. But as far as when we present it to them in December, everything seemed pretty good from the growth concept map.
I think, I just want to say again, I really appreciate the way that y'all been handling all the public input process in this. I feel like we're making some real progress. I'm gathering that a lot of the people who are still here listening to this boring conversation are students, and you're here because you have to be. I hope I don't make it too boring for you. But I actually do teach at UGA myself, and I mentioned to my students as I was leaving class today, I teach a business communications course, and I said, I'm about to go chair a contentious meeting. I'm on the planning commission. And then I said, does anyone know what a planning commission is? And they all went, oh, so you all know now. And public input is an extremely important part of the process that we do here. So I appreciate what y'all have done.
Can I say something?
Please do. That's under miscellaneous announcements, Alex.
Well, it's not an announcement, but I would like to thank staff and our attorney for helping us land the plane, I guess, today on the runway with the appeal. That was certainly new to me to this kind of side and the differences and all. Y'all responded very quickly. Your office responded very quickly with very good detail. And I just thought that helped me come to this meeting, feeling like I understood what was going on and keeping in my lane on that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And having that little primer from you last month helped a lot, and just helped to remind us, because that's not what we usually do. It's thing. Thanks, Alex. I agree with you. Any other comments, announcements? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
No.
Second.
All those in favor, please stand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yay! I got to.
Whoever hears me is.
And this is Mr. Davis.
They're applauding because it's not 9:30.
Yes, right?
Not really.
They don't even know.
That's what
They don't even know if
quality.
That's right.
At least one month.
Whoever their presenter was. I'm gonna get on.
They're out of here. Oh my gosh.
Austin, there's.